We know that this is a really difficult time for districts as you're facing some immense challenges and scrambling to meet the needs of students and teachers in the face of this pandemic. Educators have to be faced with transitioning from typical classrooms into remote learning basically on a dime. And while we know those conditions are not ideal, we wanted to provide a framework upon which you could consider the changes necessary to make this transition. Next slide, please. In previous years, AIR worked with the U.S. Department of Education and its Office of Educational Technology to develop a toolkit for future-ready leadership, or in other words, how to lead systems change and integrating technology to broaden students' learning. We began with a literature scan about best practices for EdTech and landed on these 4 focus areas as guiding principles for leaders as they shift into a tech-focused environment. Though this toolkit was developed prior to the COVID-19 crisis, the framework can easily be tailored to the current reality many districts are facing. The first part that I wanted to speak to you about is a collaborative leadership. The crisis necessitates now more than ever a commitment to strong collaborative leadership. As you figure out your next steps, consider your vision for remote learning and the immediate goals through the rest of the school year, for example, as well as how they connect to your pre-existing long-term goals for your district. Seek out voices from a variety of contexts, tapping into your parent and community stakeholders who are already on like your school councils or other advisory boards to hear from them directly about the challenges they are facing, and perhaps even from the community, the resources they have available and could share with your district. The last 2 bullets are really key. We're hearing this from a lot of folks in the field that collaboration to streamline messaging to students and parents. Right now it can be pretty overwhelming. Many of you on this may have experienced this yourself as parents, to be receiving messages from multiple sources and trying to keep up with all that students are being asked to do. And so considering ways to consolidate those, making things a bit easier to follow. One example that I wanted to highlight was out of Seattle Public Schools. They've established a web page where they house all of their district messaging and resources. They link back to previous weeks. For example, they give updates on a weekly basis, and they link back to those in case someone might have missed it. And while they're sent out via email, there's also that landing place where people can go back to that information as they find it helpful. So you could replicate that for your districts and even for individual schools. And lastly, I wanted just to point out to just keep in mind that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Right now, we are all trying to adjust to this new normal, all of us. And it can be difficult to parent, to homeschool, and to try to work remotely. And so just kind of keeping that in mind when you're looking at it and considering things holistically. Now, on this next focus area around personalized learning for students, when we think of this, it looks a bit different than it would if we were considering it in an in-person setting. Your goal should not be to replicate the school environment. Let me say that again. Your goal should not be to try to replicate the school environment. That is, do not think in terms of like 6 to 8 hour days of instruction at home. That's simply not possible right now. Perhaps not even possible in ideal conditions, but when you think about personalized learning, you must take into consideration, of course, that all students may not have access to devices. So plan both plugged and unplugged activities that don't require connectivity. UNC TV and the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, for example, have partnered to share educational resources that align PBS programming with North Carolina state standards. So while this may still be considered plugged, it's open to all kids who have access to public television, which is, a much broader group of kids than perhaps those who have internet access. If you are able to get online with students, consider, as Nancy talked about, scheduling virtual class meetings so you can see your students and help to build that community and give them a sense of normalcy with seeing their classmates and friends. And then whatever you plan, do keep in mind that students who have special needs will need similar accommodations at home, so try to kind of keep that in perspective. The next issue around robust infrastructure looks much, much different when we consider the issues related to remote learning. Equitable access to next generation bandwidth and solid secure wireless networks may be possible in schools, but it becomes a broader challenge when we're talking about kids at home. So we ask, when you're surveying your students about their access, be sure to keep their responses anonymous so they don't feel the sense of self-consciousness about what they have compared to their peers. Also think outside of the box to consider ways to get more kids connected. I think, again, this was an idea that Nancy considered was, bringing the internet to them. The exemplar that I'm sharing here is in South Carolina. One district sent out buses loaded with Wi-Fi routers so that kids in low-income communities could get online. Others are loaning out devices if they are available, and just being able to give access to kids in that way. And then finally, when you're designing your learning plans, consider that some kids may have access to devices and may be able to get connected, but they have to share that access with siblings and perhaps their parents who are working from home. So be sure to kind of limit what's required in terms of synchronous online learning activities so that, kids can kind of get it in when it's available and they can share across. And then finally, personalized learning for teachers. It is key during this time to think about our teachers. We know that this has been a major learning curve for everyone, but teachers included. Now is the time to connect with colleagues for support and collaborative development of learning plans. Don't try to do this in isolation. Work with your grade level peers, your subject area colleagues. Come together and develop these ideas for home. And then build out your virtual learning networks too. A lot of teachers use Twitter to personalize their learning. There are tons of ed chats available for subject areas across the grade span. If you are interested in 5th grade English language arts, there's probably a chat for you. Similar if you're working with middle school guidance. So really kind of tapping into and using social media as not just a way to be connected personally, but also professionally. Districts, of course, can also play a role in providing online professional development so that teachers are learning on the same tools that students are using. And educators, this truly is the time to stay connected and to lean into learning online as professionals. So we wish you the best of luck and hope that you will find these resources and tips and tools beneficial for the students that you're working with as well.
Thanks for that, Melissa. For those of you who joined the previous webinar, we focused on high-level e-learning strategies that are aligned with research on good teaching and learning, so the instructional side of this. Today we're going to build on that with some information that can help you start to think about policy and practice changes for the longer term, including where to turn for information you can trust as you continue to adapt and look for some sense of assurance. Like last time, I'll note that this list is not representative of everything available to everyone, and we continue to encourage you all to be conscientious about how you approach the selection process for e-learning. Also, the links I'm sharing will be available in the roundup we're providing. So first, we want to look at a few sources for state and district leaders. The Comprehensive Center network consists of 19 regional comprehensive centers and 1 national comprehensive center that provide resources and technical assistance services to all states and territories. In response to COVID-19, they've put together a list of what they're calling continuity resources, which are resources for a broad variety of impacted audiences in the system to help learning continue throughout the disruption of regular school operations. Similarly, the U.S. Department of Education is continuously updating their resource page for all things responding to COVID-19. This page includes content for people working in all levels of the education system, and leaders can look there for key guidance around federal programs as that guidance emerges. I want to point out Ed Week, the publication is also providing thorough coverage of the situation. This is one example. It's their map of all the school closures across the country and up-to-date details on how different states are responding. So as teachers and caregivers continue to support students throughout the school closures and e-learning, you're dealing with the fact that in some states and districts, the situation is really open-ended right now. And frankly, it can be difficult to keep planning when you're not sure how long you need to plan for. In this situation, it's important to be able to trust sources of information, whether we're talking about resources to put into instruction, standards against which you can reflect on what you're doing, and guidance on how to proceed. The following are a few I regularly turn to as a starting point or a check against my plans. Learning Keeps Going is for everyone, but primarily teachers and caregivers. It's continually updated resource repository for anything you might need to get through the situation. And it's provided by some of the most prominent organizations working in ed tech right now, and has their backing. 2 of those organizations are the others listed on this slide, ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education, and Digital Promise, those are sources that you can look to right now if you're unsure about something or you need more guidance. During our last webinar, we heard from many of you that you needed resources and guidance for working with early learners, kids in early childhood programs and early elementary grades. I'd start by saying that one resource we shared earlier, Learning Keeps Going, allows you to sort the free ed tech resources by grade. So you can look for that specific grade band that you're interested in. The U.S. Department of Education's Office of Educational Technology provides some guidance on using technology with early learners, and this includes information on developmental appropriateness if you're concerned with screen time and other items for those young kids. The second resource here from the department also includes guidance on early learners with disabilities. The second two items are also in response to some questions we received last time, specifically resources for working with students with disabilities and English learners. Both include guidance and tools you can use as a starting point for instruction. Finally, we all face the challenge of trying to vet the tools and materials being incorporated right now. One way to do this is to start thinking about what research is available. Now, to be clear, I will say that right now, as you're scrambling to provide opportunities for kids, particularly if you're a teacher with your own kids at home or a caregiver trying to work full-time and teach, digging into research probably isn't something you're going to be able to prioritize. But one thing I'm hearing a lot is that when this is all over or we start to transition back, school probably isn't going to look the same as it has in the past. And you'll want to understand what evidence says about ed tech tools you're going to invest in to build that new normal. It's also true that the ed tech field moves and changes quickly, and not everything that reaches the field has some or any evidence backing up whether it works or not. The Jefferson Education Exchange is one organization trying to change that through its EdTech Genome Project, which is working with education leaders, educators, and researchers to ensure practitioner voice is reflected in how EdTech research is carried out and that it's useful for classroom decision making. The aforementioned Office of Educational Technology also has resources that can guide leaders here, as well as teachers, families, and students, including a tool called the Rapid Cycle Evaluation Coach that helps practitioners design and implement ed tech studies. Finally, if you're just getting started with research in this area, EdSurge, which is a prominent ed tech publication that's recently become part of ISTE, published an article earlier this year which provides guidance on how to start learning and engaging with ed tech research. So if you're at the starting point, that might be a place for you to check out.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Marshall and Melissa. We really appreciate it. If I can invite our practitioners, Jody and Nancy, to join me on screen. Okay. So we want to hear from both of you, generally what you're doing about moving all of your students at such a rapid pace into remote learning, what kind of challenges you face and what strategies you felt were really helpful that you want to share. And Jody, we'll start with you.
Great, thanks, Dominique. It's great to be here. I wished we'd had this webinar about a month ago when we got the message from our governor that our schools were closing on March 16th, and he created, which we were grateful for, a 2-week planning period for schools to prepare to move into distance learning. With the spring break thrown in there, we have had 3 weeks to prepare this, and we began our new format just on Monday. During that time also, public life has been suspended and we are currently under orders to shelter in place. Now, gratefully, schools are considered providers of essential services, so we have some flexibility to move about, but it has been quite a 3 to 4 week period. My school, our school, I'm here with Kate, is called Guadalupe Alternative Programs, or GAP, and we are a state-approved alternative program and a contracted site of the St. Paul Public Schools here in Minnesota. We have 150 students, grades 9 through 12, ages 15 to 24. Our demographics are 75% immigrant refugees, so English language learners. 90% of our students are from ethnic and racial minority communities, and 95% qualify for free and reduced lunches. Our students graduate with a high school diploma and an industry recognized certificate in one of 3 career pathways, and we provide comprehensive supports in terms of social work, mental health, and transition coordination to education or full-time employment. So that's our population. We're known as being pretty gritty and nimble, which is a good thing. And we have, this is not our first time that we have done the process of ready, fire, aim. And I feel like we have fired, and now we are working with people like you all to aim what we're doing in the future. Our biggest challenges are similar to many other people's. One is the digital divide. The phrase "we are all in this together" is starting to bug me because I don't think we are all in this together. I realize the sentiment is we all need to pull together, but we are far apart from one another in terms of how this pandemic is landing on us. So the digital divide is a big challenge for us and for our students and families. They may have some technology, but it's not adequate, or they may have a phone, but they don't have enough data. And so that's something going forward. I think it's a real social justice issue that we need to embrace. Also, many of our students have home environments that are challenged to provide the kind of space and support necessary for learning. So here's what we're doing about some of that. We made a commitment early on that 100% of our students were going to remain engaged with us, and that's one of our big goals. The other thing is that 100% of our students would have access to learning materials. So to that end, every one of our teachers has prepared lessons that include a variety of formats and activities, including use of technology where possible, but not requiring that. And I like the phrase I've learned here this morning, plugged and unplugged. I'm going to take that forward. Our teachers are attempting to keep their regular class schedule, albeit in their own home, and so that they can let students know during these hours I'm accessible to you. You can reach me. You can reach me through phone or email or texting, and that again is about keeping those students engaged with us. Like many schools, we are providing a week's worth of breakfast and lunch. Students and families are assigned a pickup day Monday through Thursday where they can pick up their meals and their learning packet for the week, and staff deliver to students and families who cannot make it here for any reason. So again, 100% access. Teachers are also assigned to be here one day a week to help package meals and materials, to greet the students and families, although from a distance, and then to deliver meals if they need to. So to be clear, our goal is to keep students engaged. We have a fundamental belief at GAP that relationships are the key to change, and we use relationships to build community, and we are continuing to do that. So the lessons and activities that have gone home are an invitation for students to remain engaged with their teachers, and they're an opportunity for teachers to, one, assess learning, but even more importantly, to assess basic needs. And that, for us, is the bottom line. So in terms of strategies, real quick, our distance learning program just started 2 days ago. So I can't speak to what is most useful in regard to our learners, but I can share a couple things that has been useful in terms of strategies in supporting our teachers and helping us to move forward as the adults in this picture. One, we are using Teams for internal staff planning and student case management. So any meeting that we were in before all this happened in the last month, you're still in that meeting, it's still taking place, and we're staying connected and together in that way and continuing that work moving on. In general, we're using best practices for remote work as we learn what that is. I'm clarifying new roles and responsibilities for people in this new work environment. One example, again, is that the expectation is that teachers be available to students during their regularly scheduled time if they need any assistance with anything. We have created an online book club and have 4 different books that people are reading, can choose to read for professional development and to continue to build our own cohesion. And then I have heard of virtual happy hours, but I've not been invited to any of them. And I think I have some staff on this webinar, so that needs to change. And then as teachers are keeping students engaged and motivated, I'm trying to do the same thing for teachers and staff. I wish you all the best as we navigate this storm. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jody. That was fantastic. And it's inspirational what you guys are doing for your students. Nancy, I invite you to answer the same questions. What are those strategies? What are those challenges?
Dominic, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my video off in an effort to hopefully save bandwidth, so maybe you can hear me.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, wonderful. So remote learning, rather than seeing this as a challenge, we tried to and look at it with a different perspective so that we could see it as an opportunity for growth in a new direction. And I believe that our teachers have grown exponentially, and elementary teenager are just a very flexible and creative group. So every challenge is just simply an opportunity to learn something new, and that's how we've been trying to see it, trying to stay positive, because that's what we need to do. But due to the coronavirus affecting Asia and Europe, it seemed evident that the U.S. might be affected as well. So our school began to discuss contingencies plans should we have to go to an e-learning platform, although we didn't really know what that might look like. So the teachers and the academic coaches began formulating grade level plans early on in March, anticipating this. And we were looking at, first of all, the educational standards, because that's where we always want to focus, is looking at the standards first. What do our students need? And then go from there, because it's more about what our students need than what it looks like as far as is it plugged or unplugged. We want to make sure that we are attending to their academic needs. When we considered options, though, we did consider what it might look like as far as plugged versus unplugged, because we know that not all students have devices. Sometimes the device at home may be the parent's phone, and then that, of course, is going to work with them. So we have to be cognizant of that as well. When we're using remote learning, for our system, we focus primarily on the G Suite tools, which have been extremely helpful, and our technology groups have been in communication, making sure that we are also very aware of privacy and first and foremost, making sure that our kids are safe and that they are protected. We also have used Seesaw, but one thing that we have to think about is, as educators, we have to put our egos aside and to lean on each other. I think several people have already mentioned how we do team planning, and that has been very important in this as we move forward, because with planning, recording, posting, responding to teachers and students, participating in virtual meetings of all kinds, and of course, if you have children at home and you're teaching them, or if you're a caregiver, if you have preschoolers, all of that, it is quite possible for teachers to be on 24/7. So we have to be aware of that, and we have to make sure that we are reassuring that we are doing our very best in a unique situation. So it's important to also communicate this to parents. We want to make sure that they know you are doing your best in this situation. And with that in mind, we're supporting our parents. And I think Melissa said that so beautifully, in that school is not going to look the same. You will not have 7 hours of instruction. It's going to be greatly reduced, because in the classroom, you may have 20 students, and you're going to and from different locations throughout the day, and you're also attending to that. At home, it will look extremely different. But all that in mind, we just have to make sure that we are extending grace to each other as well as grace to ourselves.
Thank you so much for that, Nancy. And what a